There is a great article that you've written, Robbin,
Thank you.
that we get to talk about today. And that article is Let's Build Together, the Benefits of Creating a Healthy Foundation in Relationships. And I had to look on at my phone to make sure I got that title right.
Yes, that was correct. Yes.
But it is a great one. And it's such
Thank
a good topic that we get to chat through. So I want to start by asking you a little bit about it, kind of the basics. Who did you write this article to, and what inspired you to write it?
Excellent question. This article was geared towards couples or anyone, for that matter, desiring to have a positive relationship.
Right.
I was inspired to write this because of my personal passion to connect with others, as I have gained a better understanding of what healthy relationships can look and feel like from my own experiences. So I am so excited to share my resources and support to others as they're working to get to where they want to be in their relationships.
Yeah, no, I love that, because same exact thing. Like, I feel like I have experienced really unhealthy relationships and really poor foundations in relationships, as well as the other side of really healthy relationships that are thriving. But you know, it's so important to talk about. And I feel like when you have experienced some unhealthy relationships, maybe it comes with some unhealthy habits that form.
Absolutely.
So I think it's important to talk about and important to pinpoint those unhealthy habits so that we can have better relationships. So
absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm super excited to talk about this. So kind of diving right in, why do we have that internal need, as you mentioned in your article, to be listened to, heard, and understood?
Yeah, so as communal beings, we are wired to desire to connect and have interactions with one another. So like from infancy, we are craving that attachment and security, and we have an innate need to feel affirmed. And so as we get older and we begin exploring who we are, it's part of our developmental process to be able to communicate what those needs are so that we can embrace feeling needed and important. And again, it's in that affirmation that helps to shape who we become. And so those connections help to strengthen us in what we desire to be positive experiences throughout our entire lives as these flourishing human beings. So we always want to find what is right. We want to find what's working. And we want to find those experiences that are going to connect us to those positive emotions that we can carry internally. So that connection of validating our feelings in what we share is so important in feeling needed and present with those around us. So very important. Yeah.
For sure. And I love the way that you worded that, you know, to be heard, to be listened to be understood, because I do feel like as human beings, there's this innate desire for that. I mean, you think back to, you know, the Bible and back to, you know, the Lord and Adam and Eve walking in the garden with him and him knowing them and desiring to know them. This is just something that's like inbred into us, something that makes us in God's image, this desire to be known and to know others. And so I love the way that you worded that, because it just brought me right back to that, right back to, you know, Adam and Eve in the garden, getting to know God.
Yes, that's such a great reference point. Yes,
for sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, girl, it was your writing. It was your writing and the way that you worded that. I just thought it was so beautiful. And really lets me into like the heart of God, you know, which is to know us. So can you expand, and we talked about this a little bit, but on holding on to those compounded hurts and pains from previous relationships? So, you know, when we have those unhealthy habits, can you kind of expand on that and how that can hurt us in future relationships?
Absolutely. So holding on to compounded hurts is kind of like carrying heavy baggage. The heavier the bag, whatever's in there, you know, the heavier the weight it's going to be. So the heavier the hurt, the heavier the emotional baggage. And so if we're talking about holding on to these heavy weights, you know, if we have not dealt with them and kind of explored what's in that baggage, then what we're doing is we're just kind of carrying over all of those weights into the new relationships. And the burdens that go along with those weights, it'll just transfer over into these new relationships. And that can really cause immediate strain right from the beginning because you're just carrying that weight. You're transferring it right into your relationship. And so, especially when these emotions are unresolved, then triggers in the new relationship can potentially add on to the weights of those pre-existing conditions. And that can keep couples or individuals from being able to process and create that healthy space and that healthy resolve in their relationship. So it will, essentially cause that individual or that couple to tap into the unhealthy responses that are attached to those unhealthy experiences. And that will keep them from being able to thrive in a healthy manner in their relationships.
Yeah, practical side of that. I mean, I think of my own relationship with my husband and when we first
Mm,
started dating and the unhealthy habits and hurts that I took into our relationship,
mm,
how practically, if someone is in that same situation where they're in a new relationship and bringing in those hurts from past relationships, how
yeah.
practically can we kind of, I guess, fix that or heal that together?
Yeah. Well, it's going to be really important to be able to give yourself that space to say, okay, what is it that I am holding on to? And kind of being honest with that. Sometimes what we don't like to feel is the pain. We don't like to feel the hurt. And so we just kind of push it under the rug and kind of
I think
avoid
all
it.
times.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. So this is about, being really honest with yourself and saying, okay, what is it that I'm holding on to? Because if I want to have this healthy relationship, if I want to be able to embrace this new relationship, there are some weights that I have to be able to work through and work past to release. And so it is going to be really important, especially in a relationship, whether that's a dating relationship or a marriage, to allow for that type of communication to be able to share and say, hey, I'm really holding on to some things and I need to work through this, or we need to process through this together. So giving that space
Mm.
to allow for that healing to occur, whether it's as an individual or even as a couple.
Right. Yeah. I think that
Yeah,
mindset shift is so important in knowing
yeah,
that I'm not stuck. That
absolutely.
just because I've been hurt in the past, I don't have to bring that into every relationship in the future.
Yeah,
And that there are people who are going to provide me with that emotional safety that maybe I didn't have before. And
yes.
that kind of leads into my next question, which
Mm.
is what is emotional safety and how can it be helpful in future relationships?
Yeah. So emotional safety is being able to foster a space where an individual allows themselves to kind of let down that guardedness of
Mm.
protecting themselves emotionally because of perhaps those negative past experiences. And so when an individual feels that they are in this safe space, they're able to communicate their emotional needs without any negative feelings of like, feeling judged or belittled or not feeling that they have a say or a voice, attached to that sharing. And so having that emotional safe space allows for that individual to really open up emotionally and to release those feelings of being restrained, so that gives them that opportunity to share what they really feel and not keep those emotions and experiences bottled in. Yeah.
Yeah. Can someone who was maybe emotionally unsafe for a time, I guess, change and be more emotionally safe
Mm,
like later on? I think of marriages that have, fallen apart somewhat and
yeah.
maybe for years and years felt like emotionally unsafe and
Mm,
now they're working through it. Can that change? Can you become emotionally safe together?
yeah. I would say that it's very possible to move from that emotional unsafe space to the emotionally safe space. But the individual does have to realize that there has some work, they have some work to do to be able to release those past hurts, those past pains that may be tied to that emotional baggage that we were just talking about just a few minutes ago.
Mm.
But the difference on the other side, when we're talking about safety, is that that individual is open to being able to learn new skills that they can foster within that safe space by creating things like healthy boundaries. So it's a matter of identifying what has kept them from feeling safe and allowing safety even in that process, so that the new outcomes can be created and reinforced for that person so that they can feel emotionally safe, not only for themselves, but as they are embracing new relationships into that space.
Yeah, you mentioned a few examples of healthy boundaries in
Mm,
your article.
yeah.
Can you just kind of cover those, practical ways, practical boundaries that we can have?
Yeah. Just a few of them. There are so many of them that an individual can really create in that space for themselves. But yeah, I did mention a couple in my article. One of them was healthy communication,
Mm,
just knowing how to talk to one another, and this might entail just paying attention to or knowing what is allowed when talking about the tone, or learning how to connect in content, basically what you say, how you say it, the timing of communication, what that might look like. It may not be healthy to have a serious conversation late at night. You may have to create some good boundaries there of what that might look like so that you have healthier outcomes. And
mm,
then embracing how to be present with that person that you're sharing with. So that's one of the boundaries that I mentioned was, healthy communication. Another one is trust. And that's, when you have these great boundaries in place that will increase the chances of that individual to be more vulnerable and transparent, to know that their feelings are safe. So also feeling and knowing, okay, this is the type of interaction that I need in order to create that safe space for me to know that that person is trustworthy of my feelings, and this is what it does not look like. And so knowing what those boundaries need to be for yourself. But then another one that I mentioned was support, having those feelings of just being understood, allowing empathy into the relationship so that you can just, feel that someone is in your corner,
mm,
and knowing that as you are going through something, or if you need to share something, that you are in a space to where you feel comfortable sharing with that person, and you know that they've got your back, that they are there genuinely for you. So those are just a couple of boundaries that I mentioned that are very, very important. Like I said, there can be many, just depending on that person's individual needs. But it is important to be able to, properly define what that is for
mm.
you.
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, that kind of goes into my next question, which is
Mm.
how do you create those healthy boundaries with loved ones, with
Mm.
your spouse, with close friends, with family, with in-laws? Like, how do you create those healthy boundaries
Yeah.
with them? How do you establish those when you are really close to the person?
Yeah. Well, establishing boundaries with people really across the board should definitely be created according to, again, what that need is, whatever is going to allow you to feel safe in that relationship, even your close loved ones. So, boundaries are important, whether it's, with a coworker, or if it's in that more intimate setting or that intimate space, that intimate relationship. But first, it's going to be very, very helpful to establish what is it that you need with that particular individual.
Mm,
Okay, so in order to share with others what this looks like, you first have to know, okay, so what is my need with my spouse, with my loved one, with my children, with my girlfriend, my boyfriend, what is it that I need first? And
mm,
so really establishing clear definitions of what those concepts are, trust, love, support. What does that look like for you as an individual? And because it's really important to grasp that those concepts can be pretty subjective.
mm,
And what trust means for me can totally mean something different for you. So it's important to really define what it is and what it is not for you. And then once you know what that looks like and what it feels like, then it's going to be really, really important to have that time to communicate that to the ones who need to be aware of the boundaries that you are establishing. Okay. And especially with family, especially with loved ones, the ones that you think that they should be the closest to you, you think that they should know you very well. Um, I offer that you should not assume that people should just know what your boundaries are, even your family, even your loved ones. You got to
In
clearly
fact,
communicate.
they might not know even more so than other people because they are so close and involved with you.
Absolutely. And they may just kind of overlook some things that might be, on a deeper level, So yeah, it's really important not to just assume, that they just know, because they may not even see it, So, but giving yourself that opportunity to clearly communicate what those expectations are, what it is that you're needing, what it is, what it isn't. Okay. And then also in considering what the boundaries need to look like, whether it's your spouse, your children, just different people in your family, the boundaries don't necessarily need to be the same across the board for everyone in your life. You may have more stringent boundaries for some, and then some looser boundaries for others. It totally depends on the individual and what they are needing with that relationship. But I think the important takeaway here is that you have to know what you need for that individual and what boundaries need to be put in place for that particular relationship to thrive. And then, if I may also offer, it's also important for you as an individual to create your own boundaries for yourself as well before you even allow anybody into that emotionally safe space. As you are nurturing your relationships, you may have to set some boundaries for yourself, because that's the part, especially when talking about healthy relationships and growing and nurturing those relationships, really allowing yourself to focus on the parts of this that you can control. And of course, we can control ourselves. And so that also entails, maybe, yes, implementing some boundaries for ourselves so that we can maintain our own emotional safe space.
Yeah, no, so true. How could going to therapy, going to counseling,
Yeah.
make a difference in improving those communication skills? Do you kind of, recommend it? How could it help? What does that look like?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. I think that, going to therapy is very beneficial in helping people to just gain those necessary skill sets or tools that's going to equip them with being successful when demonstrating communication in those relationships, especially for those who may not have had positive experiences or healthy experiences of what, a great relationship looks like or feels like. Yeah, therapy can really help that individual to kind of unpack those things that are not necessary as we explore what's included or what's been stored in that emotional baggage. And, that might be hindering that person from being able to embrace healthier outcomes. And so, if someone has never had a reference to positive relationships and they're only taking what they know from past relationships into the new relationships, then a cycle is being created of those unhealthy behaviors. And so by allowing the therapeutic experience into, that individual space, it helps them to kind of, rewrite the narrative of how they would like to create the communication skills that's going to foster and nurture those healthy relationships. So yes, I am very much in favor of course, therapy in that process.
Yeah, love that, and love the way that you worded that. What final advice, do you have as a counselor to
Yeah.
someone who's wanting to build healthier foundations in their relationship?
Right. So, if someone is listening to this today, I just applaud them, first of all, for even taking the first steps to just kind of listening and tapping into the support that they need to establish healthier foundations in their relationships. And so, if you're listening to this today, I want you to know that there is help available for you. And if you're holding on to previous hurts from relationships of the past, you no longer have to feel stuck and think that you have to do this on your own or that you can never have a healthy relationship. the help is available. And together, we can unpack those feelings that you have been carrying for so, so long and work on ways to create a healthier space for you so that in turn, you can create healthier spaces in your relationships.
That's
Yeah.
really beautiful. Yeah,
Yeah.
if you're tuning in and you feel connected to what Robbin is saying, and maybe
Mm,
even want to schedule a session with her, her links are going to be in the description, in the notes, and we would love to kind of connect y'all if this
mm,
is something that is really speaking to you.
yeah.
So awesome. Yes, such a good article, and really, I just feel like could apply to everybody. I don't feel like this is an
Absolutely.
article necessarily targeted at one specific group of
Right.
people. I feel like this is,
Yes.
we all need to have healthy foundations in our relationships in order
Yes.
to be successful, in order to be healthy,
Yes.
individually and relationally. You know, it's so important. And so, love this
Yes.
article, love your heart behind
Thank
it.
you.
Yeah, so
Thank
good.
you.